Hey everyone, welcome to Deku Fiction, the place where My Hero Academia timelines don't just change, they collapse. Today is 23rd January, and we are starting a brand new What If series. In this video, we explore a chilling scenario. What if Deku became Iron Man and fell for May? This is part 1. So now let's start this video. Howard Stark didn't look back as he tossed a small suitcase onto the curb. 7-year-old Tony Stark stood frozen, his hands shaking. "Bye," his father said. "Dad?" Tony whispered. "Mom?" No answer. Beside him, a quiet voice spoke. "Don't be sad," Izuku said softly. "One day, when we're old enough, we'll make this world better." Tony never heard him. He never did. 12 years later, "Mr. Stark," the officer said, his voice heavy. "Your parents were shot. They passed away before the ambulance arrived." Tony didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply nodded. "People die," he said coldly. "There's no point crying over it." Moments later, a banker placed a document in his hands. Inheritance. That was the day Tony Stark stopped believing in family. 1 year later. Cameras flashed. The world held its breath. "I am Iron Man," Tony declared. "I am Iron Man," Izuku echoed beside him. The crowd exploded as Tony walked away, leaving the world in awe and unanswered questions behind. 10 years later. The battlefield was silent. Tony Stark stood broken, bleeding, barely alive. "I am Iron Man," he whispered. 6 Infinity Stones burned into his hand, and with one final breath, he snapped.
Line break gypsy tent. Izuku opened his eyes and looked around frantically. "Pepper?" Izuku shouted, looking. "Where's my wife?" "They are in another world, my boy. The potion has granted you the tools to make yourself a great hero, as you have already become in another reality." The fortune teller said, "Now be gone." And Izuku turned. The woman's form rippled. Line break. Random burger place. Izuku needed something to get his head straight. Fast food helped. Sex helped more, but he should probably wait until he's 18 in a few months. Less awkward for him. After wolfing down 4 burgers, the inventor had pulled out his notebook, the memory of the years with it flooding back. He opened it to a blank page and wrote the heroes from Tony's universe. Even Tony Stark and Spider-Man. Izuku looked at the last page with his other life and pulled out a blank red notebook. The Extremis. Nanotech. Pym particles. Arc reactor. Badassium. Izuku thought as he wrote down the formulas. Izuku walked out the restaurant with plans to rebuild the shining middle finger to every shithead he'd put up with in both universes, telling him he'd never be anything but a menace to society. Better stop at the hardware store. Izuku returned home and was met to the pudgy yet adorable woman that was Inko Midoriya. Izuku gave her a hug, but it definitely felt some type of way about having a mother again. A brainwashed POW isn't gonna kill this one. Izuku headed to his room and pulled out the pieces to build the shell of the Mark I arc reactor. "Mom, can I use the credit card? I need to order something. It's around 6,000 yen, but I'll pay you back in a few days," Izuku asked. "Of course, sweetie," Inko said. 1 week later, Inko nearly had a heart attack after she received a letter from the electric company telling her 1,642,724 yen and 86 sen, $15,000, has been transferred to her account for her solar panels. "There has to be a mistake," Inko said, grabbing her cell phone. "What's a mistake?" Izuku asked. "Why is 1,642,724 yen and 86 sen put into my account? We don't even have solar panels," Inko asked. "Come check it out," Izuku said, leading her to the fuse box in the basement. An extra metal shell was added next to it, wired into it. Izuku opened a box and a glowing circle was what was in the center. It's an arc fusion reactor. It's got enough power to run 75 houses for a year. If I scale it up, a single plant could power the whole country. Inko just stood there speechless. How much did this cost? Not that much, Izuku said. 2 weeks later, Inko had noticed her son was acting differently the past 3 weeks. He had started exercising and tinkering with machines. She walked into the garage to tell him dinner was ready and saw him hammering a hot piece of metal. The pieces around him looking like armor. Almost done, he shouted over the sound of rock music. Inko sat across from her son eating. Inko was wondering what caused her son to change recently. She knew he was planning on getting into UA. Izuku. Yeah, Mom. Inko was quiet. Izuku just looked at her waiting. What are you building? A suit. Izuku said. And this suit can measure to others of more able people. I'm sure. Izuku said. You know how strong quirks can be, Inko said. I know. Izuku said. Inko frowned, both eating in relative silence. Next week Izuku had built a new suit. Without the money to build a full armor suit, he had to think smaller. Using a microwave inner layer to house the circuits and the Jarvis 2.0 beta. The armored plates could attach separately and the entire suit could add pieces gradually. If he wanted to build the nanoparticles, he'd need enough power first, and a particle accelerator wasn't something he should be building in his backyard yet. Izuku had looked into getting the necessary pieces to create the Extremis serum. He was kicking himself for not using it in his rematch against Thanos. I am Iron Man. Izuku answered his phone and heard the news. His mother was in the hospital. That night Izuku marched into the hospital with the Extremis 2 virus in a metal case. Inko Midoriya. He slammed a hand on the counter. Room B5. She's not awake. Izuku entered the room and saw his mother, bandaged and unconscious on the bed. After reading the report, Izuku blew his nose on the paper. Possible indefinite coma, my ass. Izuku primed the injector and shot the vial of Extremis into his mother's leg. Her body began coughing up black sludge and covering her in a cocoon of scabs. I already lost Maria Stark. You're not dying on me, damn it. Izuku thought before walking out the room just as the machines went off. What's going on? Is that her quirk? I don't know. Izuku returned home and begun looking over the news for whose skull he was gonna cave in for this. Mitsuki. When she walked into the home of her friend, she didn't expect the armed turret pointed at her head. State your intentions. I'm here to check on my godson Izuku. Mitsuki shouted. Mr. Midoriya isn't home at the moment. If you want, I may leave a message. I'll call the brat myself. Mitsuki said, backing away from the gun. Auntie Mitsuki. A voice answered the phone. The rush of wind in the background. Kid, I came over to see how you were doing. I am your godmother. Mitsuki said. Where are you? It's 8 in the morning. I'm jogging. Izuku said. Can you call off this gun turret? Oh yeah. Jarvis C clearance enabled to Mitsuki Bakugo. Yes sir. Welcome Mrs. Bakugo. Mitsuki walked in and began checking the kitchen. How long you gonna be out? I should be home soon. Later. Izuku hung up. Meanwhile, the armored Avenger was busy avenging. The bastard who ran over his mother was found beaten and limbless, hung by his balls in a city park. Living and breathing. Follow traffic rules. The modulated voice said before flying off. Izuku landed in the backyard and unloaded his suit into the shed before changing into his exercise clothes. Hey auntie. Izuku said, walking in. How you holdin' up, runt? She asked, petting his hair. I'm fine. Izuku said. Mitsuki put 2 plates of breakfast on the counter and Izuku ate. So you enjoy your break? Yeah. Izuku said. You ready for the last year of high school? Totally. Izuku said, smirking behind his breakfast. So chasing any skirt? Mitsuki asked. Not yet, Izuku said. What's your plan after? Then hero, Izuku said. Mitsuki snickered and said, you sure got balls, kid. Damn straight. Izuku said. Well, since you got it handled here. Later, runt. Call if you need anything, Mitsuki said. 3 days later, Inko had regained consciousness to find herself in some kind of cocoon of black scabs. Looking around, she found a call button, and when she pressed it, her hand started burning. The feeling was minimal, but the button started to melt. The doctors rushed in to check her over. What happened to me? Inko asked. You were in a hit-and-run accident. It's a miracle you're somehow not dead. The doctor said. Your body seemed to be accelerating its own healing. Inko looked at herself and tested her hands. the glow of heat showing as if her blood was on fire. How is this happening? It could be a latent quirk. The doctor said, we'd like to run some tests. Izuku the Iron Avenger was working on the Extremis 3.0. Since he can't manufacture the nanoparticles of the bleeding edge, he could use human cells to produce the undersheath from ports in his skin. Extremis 2.0 was a perfected version of Hammer Tech's Extremis. All the powers, none of the potential explosions. 3.0 would focus on the mental abilities, turning his brain into a computer. Laminating neurons to prevent Alzheimer's, overclocking his thoughts and giving him a greater ability to multitask. The most important part would allow him to interface with technology with his mind, turning him into a technopath. It was the cheapest option if he was going to get anywhere near how far his tech could in his other life. 10,000 United States dollars was cheaper than a multi-billion-dollar suit. The front door opened and in walked Inko. Mom, why didn't they call me? I'd have picked you up, Izuku said, walking into the living room. Inko had looked at the boy she raised. He'd been so different recently. Inko held up her hand and it started glowing. Izuku, do you know how this happened? Yeah, I saved you, Izuku said. What is this? Inko asked. Extremis 2.0. It improves the body's strength, speed, stamina and durability. The extra body heat causes a mild ability to breathe fire, Izuku said before hugging her, and Inko burped a stream of fire. Glad the house is fireproof for your father, Inko said. Are you planning on taking the Extremis? Yes, Izuku said. Inko looked down at her hands and then looked at Izuku. You're serious about becoming a hero? Well, if you're gonna do something, better be good, Izuku said. Inko hugged her son. Please, don't test anything on yourself. If you have to, we can get a dog or something. It's fine, Mom. I'll be safe, Izuku said. Izuku walked in and got looks from the students. Who's the new kid? Do you think he lifts? Everyone got to class and the teacher was doing roll call. Izuku Midoriya. Here, Izuku said. No, seriously, where is Deku? The teacher said. I'm serious. Izuku glared at the teacher. The students all turned to get a look at the green-haired supermodel that walked into class. The teacher looked at him as if not being able to comprehend the freckle-faced kid he's been teaching the last 3 years looked like this. Deku, Katsumi Bakugo shouted. The name is Izuku Midoriya, Izuku said, glaring at them. The teacher moved on and the class was handed papers for career assessments. After class, Katsumi had been sneaking glances at the quirkless boy all day. This wasn't Deku. No way could the annoying loser turn into this. Kachan, Izuku said. When the Spitfire had heard the slice of hunk shout her name, she had only been able to back away. She couldn't scream, she couldn't growl, her face couldn't make any sign of displeasure. Even his voice changed. Line break. When Katsumi got home, she was greeted by 2 sweaty women in the house drinking from sports bottles. Hey brat, Mitsuki said. Shut up, hag. Who the hell's this? Katsumi, it's me, your godmother, the green-haired woman said. Katsumi's face fell as she recognized the green-haired woman. A college picture of her mother with her. Auntie Inko. Impressive, isn't it? Inko said, smiling as she flexed her arms above her head. Katsumi walked to her room and fell face first into her pillow. When did her godmother get hot? Nothing made sense. Hardware store. Izuku was buying the materials. He saw the copper wiring was on clearance and his hand had grabbed the last spool the same time another hand did. Hey buddy, I need this, the person said. Sorry, but I got it first, dude. Izuku turned to see a pink-haired girl holding the wiring. Her eyes were pink crosshairs and she had on leather overalls and a white shirt. The two refused to let go of the spool and they got a look at the other's carts. Sheet metal, bolts and electric connectors. That's a lot of heavy metal. What are you working on? That's a lot of ceramic carbine and drills. What babies are you working on? She asked. None of your business, Izuku said. Can I help you two with something? Do you have any more 10-gauge copper wiring? Izuku asked. I'm sorry, sir. We have 11-gauge, the employee said. Do you have a respooling machine? Izuku asked. Of course. After the employee settled the argument, the two were rung up and the pink-haired girl introduced herself. My name is Mei Hitsumi, inventor extraordinaire. Izuku Midoriya, founder of Stark Tech and the smartest mechanic in the world. Izuku said smirking. Oh really? Mei asked smiling. Wanna test that claim? Oh, and how do you plan to do that? Come check out my babies and you can show me yours. Mei said. You're on. Izuku said. Mei workshop. A shed behind an average household had many new inventions hanging up and laying around. Blueprints on a pegboard and incomplete prototypes on the workbench. Here are my flight boots. Mei said, revealing a pair of steampunk pair of boots. Kinda clunky. Fan propulsion is a little slow. No way they'd reach higher than a few meters before burning out. Izuku said. Oh yeah, well, check out my wrist-mounted rope launcher. Mei said. Again clunky. Limited rope storage, and judging how thin it is, I'm guessing it's got a weight limit of around 200 pounds. Izuku said. Oh yeah, smart guy. Here's my solid-state lithium-ion battery pack. 600 kilojoules of power per gram. Mei said, showing the battery and looking smug. Impressive. Oh yay, really? Mei said, smiling. Except it's again clunky and too big to install in anything other than heavy machinery. Izuku grinned. Mei pouted and said, oh, let me see your inventions. Izuku pulled a wristband out of his pocket and put it on. He sprayed the ceiling and pulled himself up. Stark Tech Bio Cable is a synthetic spider silk reinforced with carbon nanotube. It's got a tensile strength in the hundreds of thousands. Izuku said, demonstrating by lifting Mei and bouncing on the string. A single pound could wrap around the planet, and a single cartridge holds about a liter of pressurized web fluid. Mei had tested the bio cable by pulling it and trying to cut it. Okay, that is definitely better. Mei said. I wanna see your other babies. Izuku garage. Wake up. Daddy's home. Izuku said, snapping his fingers. Izuku's dad's car was lowered into the floor and the walls opened up to see a bunch of gadgets on shelves. Not nearly as many as Mei. A hologram interface appeared at a desk with a chair. Mei's eyes had turned to hearts as she marveled at the inventions. This is your workshop, Mei exclaimed. Yeah, but most of my stuff is in my room. Can't have the samples getting temperature damage. Mei had been rushing around getting looks at the inventions. Are those flight boots? Stark Tech repulsors are a completely electric-based propulsion that is carbon neutral and cold enough that gasoline won't ignite under them. Izuku said, grabbing the raw metal prototypes and bolting them on along with the repulsor chest piece and flight stabilizers. Mei watched as Izuku floated before her, his glowing chest piece like a glow of a celestial being to her. Are you gonna join the support class? We could make so many babies together. I'm going hero, Izuku said, landing. But your babies could help so many heroes. Mei said. And I don't care. I'll design support gear when I'm bored, but my inventions are designed for me to use. Izuku said. Mei had looked ready to cry. You wanna take the flight boots for a spin? Izuku asked. Mei nodded. Give me a second, Izuku said, pulling a crate out of a compartment and pulling out a pair of red and gold boots and gloves. He unbolted himself from the raw metal ones and handed them to Mei, who happily put them on. The two ran out of the garage and Izuku hit a button on his phone, closing the garage. Izuku showed Mei how to take off and had to grab her to steady her for a few seconds. You're not even struggling with it. Your legs must be really strong. Damn straight. Now let's get a little altitude, Izuku said, grabbing her arm and shooting into the air. Mount Lady. When she was taking the night patrol, she didn't expect two flying teenagers being something she'd have to deal with. So you two don't have quirks? Not ones that fly, Mei said. Okay then Mount Lady was looking at her phone. Okay, so if you're flying in the city, keep it above 50 feet if that's possible and go slow, not to cause any damage. You got it, tits on Titan, Izuku said, grinning. Both girls looked at him. You know Attack on Titan? It's an anime about giants that eat people. Mount Lady had typed it into her phone's search engine and said, okay, I will look into this. Have a good night, you two. Izuku and Mei took off and decided a wide sweep around the city would be fun. I wanna see how fast this can go, Mei said. Mei, those are prototypes, they don't have any of the mock flight safety features. Mei ignored him and flew upwards. The pink-haired girl was laughing and cheering as she climbed higher and higher. Until it got cold, really cold. Her boots started to ice over and the arc reactor was flickering as if low on power. Mei began to fall. A string of web attached to her chest and a parachute opened as she gently floated onto a beach. Izuku flew down with a look of complete parental rage. Mei had temporarily forgotten Izuku was her age. Mei. The green-haired teen had landed in front of her and said, "That was a very very stupid thing to do, Mei. I told you those were prototypes." Mei had tried to calm Izuku down. "I just wanted to test it out. I've tested them, Mei, they freeze at 30 knots. Hey, you can't tell if a machine is capable of until you try. That isn't a good idea when you're in the stratosphere. You can build new machines but human life can't be repaired," Izuku said. Mei frowned and Izuku said, "We're walking you home. No more flight boots and you're grounded. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Mei exclaimed. Mei's house. Mei got home and Izuku took the flight boots and gloves back and flew off with promise to talk to her later. Mei went to her room and sat on her bed. "Wait a minute, he isn't my dad." A text message appeared on her phone. "I meant no more flying." Mei headed to her desk and started working on a blueprint. Inko Midoriya, the mother of Iron Man, had been through a drastic change over the last few weeks. This extremis had given her a renewed youth and taste for life she had thought was lost in college. She had actually started wearing her old college clothes. Mitsuki had always been the bigger of the two girls, being better at nearly everything than Inko except being social. That was where Inko saved her and formed a lifelong friendship. Now Inko felt powerful. Was this what her son thrived for? Was this why he wanted to be a hero? The feeling that all your inadequacies, all your fears, all your value to the world could be utilized. Inko had started going to the gym the day she returned home from the hospital. She was outpacing even some of the heroes that used the gym. When a hero had noticed her, she was asked if she was an upcoming hero. Inko declined the fact, saying she was 40. "Well, you look like you could make it as a sidekick. Just one question. You got a husband or wife?" The heroine talking to her asked, giving the hint she was also interested in Inko. "Sorry, I'm happily married," Inko said. Izuku's father was a hard worker. Got kicked from high school for smoking in the bathroom but got a job as an oil rig safety manager. He put his all into providing for his family. "Oh well, my advice. Endeavor is the ideal for you then. The guy does not have any interest in anything but professionalism and, don't tell anyone this, but he's on a sort of vacation high due to his daughter getting into UA on recommendations." The heroine said, handing her a card. "If you mention I sent you, I get a bonus to my department." "I'll look that up, miss." Rabbit Hero. Mirko. Inko Midoriya. "Hey, could you sign this? It's for my son." Inko handed her a small notepad and pen. "Oh sure. Who do I make this out to?" "Izuku Midoriya." The offices of Endeavor. Enji Todoroki was probably the closest to being high he'd ever felt in his life. Finally, 20 years in the making, his ultimate goal was coming to its end. His youngest child, Shoko, was just tested and guaranteed a spot in next year's UA Hero class. "Mr. Todoroki, you have a meeting with a sidekick applicant," the secretary Ricky said, a man with an impressive quirk that fireproofed objects he touched. The perfect secretary for a hothead like Endeavor. Ricky being the only man with the ability to say that and not get hurt. "Send M in, and order a pizza for lunch," Enji said, a smile welded to his face. A green-haired woman walked in. "Hello, my name is Inko Midoriya. I was told by Mirko you were hiring sidekicks. Glad you came here for the job. What is your quirk?" Inko grabbed the granite desk that Enji was currently had his feet up on and lifted it with her thumb and pointer finger. This was a custom-made desk and extremely heavy. "And I can overclock my metabolic rate to produce enough heat to burn flesh. And I can attract small objects," Inko demonstrated by picking up the pens that fell off the desk and setting them in the cup. Enji smiled and said, "Can you start Monday?" "Yes," Inko said. "Perfect. Talk to Ricky about your hours and he'll help you with your costume," Endeavor said. "Oh, one more thing. Could you sign this? My son is a huge fan of heroes." Enji heard son and asked, "How old is your son?" "Oh, he's 18 and plans on getting into UA," Inko said. Enji had made a mental note to meet this boy. He might have found the perfect suitor for his daughter. "How about you bring Izuku in next Saturday and I'll give the boy an autograph live and in person." "Oh, he'd love that. One last thing, Midoriya, how motivated would you say your son is to become a hero?" Endeavor asked. Inko's face went to a serious look. That boy would move through hell to stand among heroes. Izuku room. I'm in hell. Izuku thought as he couldn't scream as he was in a scab cocoon for the second time that month. He had taken the Extremis 2.0 a week after Inko and was currently using the nanovirus to shave his skeleton and laminate it with the ceramic carbine. For the last 3 days he was sitting in this cocoon feeling as if his bones were glass and shattered. It itched like he was filled with fiberglass. The cocoon locked his body into place so it wouldn't move during the healing. This was hell. When the bonding was complete his bones would heal over the carbine. The inner bone functioning as normal but the outer bone making itself stronger than normally possible. The other thing added to Izuku's body was a new arc reactor in his chest to power the electroactive polymer weave connected to his heart. His heart would be able to pump more blood without the strain of a higher heart rate. A synthetic cologne weave reinforced his arteries to handle the higher blood flow. He didn't have the luxury of the nanoparticles, but once he cracked the neuron laminate he wouldn't need wiring to connect his armor. Inko had opened the door and was greeted by the same sight that slightly horrified her a few weeks ago, with Izuku being in one for 3 days to burst out like a chest burster. Inko stood beside the mass of scabs and put a hand on it. I love you, sweetie. I believe you'll be great. Izuku had heard her through the muffled mass of dried blood. Your little boy will be a man that can hold the world on his shoulders, Mom. Izuku thought. School next day. Izuku had broken out his cocoon and tenderly moved to get ready for school. He already missed 5 days this semester. His body was healed enough to function, but it would take a few days to get his bones to superhuman levels. Izuku walked to school and made it just in time for the bell. Izuku took his seat and let out a small hiss as he still had felt like glass was under his bones. Midoriya, you've been absent for 3 days this week. Care to explain why? Family reasons. Here's my note, Izuku said. The teacher's hand extended out and grabbed it. Okay then. The career assessments came back and, oh for goodness sake, you all want to be heroes. The teacher threw the stack of papers. The class cheered, making shows of their various quirks. Izuku was joining in as well. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks. No they don't, Izuku said. Everyone got silent and turned to see the quirkless Avenger. And you think a quirkless loser like you will get anywhere? I have 2 black belts, extensive knowledge on electrical engineering and design. I can build what I lack. Quirks are overrated, Izuku said, smirking. Cheech, don't lump me in with these extras. Oh Bakugo, you applied to UA, correct? The class began muttering about the exclusiveness of UA. Bakugo bragged about scoring high on the practice test. You applied to UA as well, correct Midoriya? Yeah, I got a 210/210ths on the practice test. Izuku said. Kachan head turned to Izuku slowly with an eerie silence but a look of rage behind her eyes. The class ended and Izuku kicked his desk back, avoiding Katsumi's hand from hitting the desk. Izuku got up and the bullies boxed him into the room. So the useless loser thinks he could get into UA. A noodle-fingered boy said. Izuku looked at the 3. You think you are lard ass over there could be heroes? Can you even fly anymore? Chub chub. The fat-winged kid grit his teeth and shouted it was a medical condition. Yeah, it's called obesity. I can picture it now, Kentucky Fried Fuckhead. The perfect name for a villain like you. Izuku said, a shit-eating grin on his face. He definitely felt a little pride at the moment. The winged fat ass swung. Izuku ducked and landed a knee into his junk, dropping him in an instant. Noodle fingers followed and Izuku got him with a palm to the chest, causing him to start coughing, falling, trying to catch a breath. Probably shouldn't have started smoking, Noodle head. Izuku said, kicking him in the ribs. Izuku grabbed his bag and put his stuff away. Katsumi had swung for his face and Izuku grabbed it with his left arm and elbowed her with his right elbow. You really should mix up your attacks. Izuku said, flat-faced. You're smarter than that, Kachan. The girl had let out a scream as she had tried to attack again. Izuku countered and blocked every attack until she got one good hit with her knee to his groin. Izuku fell to his knees, but when another punch was coming towards him he caught the fist. You think a complete Deku like you can be a hero? Katsumi shouted, grabbing his notebook and burning it. Get it through your thick head. You're useless, you'll always be useless and nothing can change that. You don't think I have digital backups of that notebook? Izuku asked, receiving another kick to his groin again. Katsumi stomped to the door and stopped. I have an idea on how you could get a quirk. Swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in another life. I have an idea how you could have some actual friends. Izuku said, the wind knocked out of him from having his balls kicked. Maybe get whatever crawled up your ass out and be less of a bitch. Katsumi spit in his eye and said, I'm not your friend, Deku. She slammed the door. Later, Izuku had recovered faster than the two and headed home. He was definitely feeling shitty after that encounter. He wanted to get home and suit up for some blue sky thinking. Damn, suit wasn't light enough to fit in his pack. Micro rockets with Maze SLB could work with the memory metal. A sludge dripped from above and Izuku dove forward in time to dodge the black mass from landing on him. Oh, we got a fighter. The sludge villain said, a melted grin on its face. Izuku was looking around for anything that could help in this situation. Ice grenades. Wait, no, they're in my other pants. Web shooter. Not likely. Izuku webbed to the bridge ledge and heard a voice. I am here. Izuku turned to see the symbol of hope himself. All Might. Izuku pulled himself to sit on the ledge and whip out a notebook. Detroit SSSMMMAAASSHH. All Might shouted as the sludge was stunned by the concussive force of the shockwave. All Might had downed a sports drink bottle. Izuku just noticed he had and started to scoop up the sludge villain. Izuku jumped down and started helping. Thanks for the save. All Might looked and saw the green-haired boy. I didn't see you there, young man. I jumped up to the ledge. Izuku pointed to the bridge. Pretty sure I just avoided getting tentacle hentai'd. All Might actually laughed at that one. I see you distracted it for me, young man. I had been chasing it all day. Damn sewers. Isn't there sewer heroes? The turtle ninjas and Jumpman the plumber hero? Izuku asked. Oh, you know of the subterranean squad. They're fixing a minor flooding problem north. All Might said as the sludge was being collected. Izuku had let his hyper fan off its chain with how he was asking All Might a bunch of questions while loading the bottle. All Might, being grateful he didn't have to collect the villain on his own due to his time limit, answered truthfully and had asked questions back. So how did you make it to the bridge? It's a little tall, isn't it? Izuku shot out a web and showed All Might. Bio cable. I could lift an elephant with this. All Might looked at the device and then at the boy's face. What do you think? An impressive invention, young man. I'm sure it could be a versatile innovation in support gear. Actually, I plan on being a hero. Izuku said. All Might looked a bit taken back. You wouldn't mind telling me what your quirk is, would you, Midoriya? Oh, I'm quirkless, Izuku said. All Might's eyes widened enough they were visible. Izuku snapped a picture. This is gonna get me so much money. Are you sure that's wise? If heroes were wise, they'd kill their enemies. A hero stands up for the innocent and protects the lives of those that can't. Izuku said. All Might covered his mouth to hide a cough. Izuku was smiling at him. Damn it, I'm running out of time. All Might jumped away and Izuku shot a web, getting pulled with the hero. Izuku held the web and created a hang glider out of webbing. Let go. I still need to talk. Izuku shouted over the wind. All Might landed on a roof and Izuku got flung forward, but he turned to correct the flight and wedded back to the building and pulled himself in. Izuku had pulled out his wallet and took out his prized possession. Please sign this. All Might deflated and Izuku's jaw fell. Before you say anything, your quirk expands your muscles to compensate for a huge energy spike, making you stronger. Izuku said. All Might raised an eyebrow. You always get bulkier during intense fights. I theorized about 4 years ago you were actually skinny, but everyone laughed and told me I was stupid. Well, you hit the nail on the head. All Might said. I inflate my muscles with energy to pack more of a punch. That's a good enough excuse for one for all. But I don't understand where the energy comes from. Izuku said. My Geiger counter doesn't register any gamma radiation and you're too bronze to be solar powered. Your stomach could turn food into power, but that would mean you need to eat hundreds of thousands of calories just to throw a punch. You don't eat that much if creepystalker.com is correct. For fuck's sake, might as well tell him he's already figured it out. All Might screamed in his head. Alright kid, don't go spreading this around. I'm quirkless. I could tell people I saw you plowing midnight and have that on video and they'd just said I seed it. Your secret is safe, Izuku said. You wanna be a hero who? Toshinori said, leaning on the rail. You understand heroes get injured all the time, right? Izuku nodded. All Might lifted his shirt. 3 years ago a villain damaged half my respirator system. Izuku didn't even look remotely fazed. Tony had a heart surgery with chlorophyll as an anesthetic. Toxic chainsaw, right? Good memory, but this was a difficult villain. All Might said, putting his shirt down. Quirked individuals get beaten and sometimes killed. If you want to help people, I'd join the police. All Might signed the card, but when he looked up, Izuku was gliding off the side of the building using the web shooter to navigate. All Might sighed and looked at the card again as he walked down the stairs. Wait a minute, this is that talking chocolate bar card that got cancelled. How did the kid get this? I am here. The clear holographic card of All Might shouted. All Might knew he definitely needed to give this back to the kid eventually. Toshinori pocketed the card and reached for his phone when he realized he didn't button his cargo pocket. Shit, the deflated hero said. Katsumi. The girl was walking down the sidewalk kicking anything that was in her way. Damn Deku and his damn book. Why can't he just learn his place in this world? Katsumi thought. A small part of her brain, a 3.9-year-old girl, had said meekly, his place is supposed to be shoulder to shoulder with his best friend as the top hero. What did you say? Katsumi screamed in her mind. Nothing, ma'am. That's what I thought. Katsumi looked up just in time to get attacked by a wad of sludge she had just accidentally kicked open. Izuku. High above the city was a red and gold suit of armor. Izuku had forced the tears down as he suited up and rocketed out the house with a minimal, "Hi, I'm going out." To his mother. Izuku was getting flashbacks of every time in his childhood he got bullied and harassed. Izuku tried to focus on something, anything good. The only good was All Might or Tony Stark. And now all that's left is Tony. Izuku remembered the battle with Thanos on Titan. You throw one more moon at me, and I'm gonna lose it. Stark, you know me. I do. The genocidal grape said, you're not the only one cursed with knowledge. My only curse is you, was Tony's response before a barrage of missiles popped out his back and fired at the Mad Titan. Tony didn't have powers, he did have gifts, he didn't even have any argumentation. But he stood up to Thor, Loki, the Hulk. He was the one who was first at the door when Thanos came knocking and fought with everything he had and had made a god bleed. And Izuku was there every step of the way. Izuku let a few tears fall as he had started laughing at his life before Tony. Every insult, every burn and bruise just melted away. He had scars, but he also had something that others could never have. The primal ambition that clawed humans up the million-year corpse pile of evolution. The need to exist in the world. The need and will to keep going. Izuku smiled and slowed his flight to just enjoy being in the clouds. This was cut short by the scanner going off and seeing a fire and that slime fucker. Guess stopping the fire is not against the law. The body inside the sludge was picked up and Izuku said, hero laws prepare to be ignored. Jarvis, prime the zero cannon. Wide spray, and keep the sonic pulse on standby. Right away, sir, Jarvis said. Izuku spun to head to the fire. Katsumi, this is it. Katsumi thought, the hope for salvation slipping by the minute. Her quirk only made the problem worse. Izuku, we're sorry, the little girl said. No, we aren't, Katsumi said. A streak of red, gold and blue flew overhead, spraying the burning buildings with some kind of freeze quirk. The heavy armored figure landed and stood facing the sludge. Place picture here. You have 3 seconds to get off her before I turn your ass into dust. The voice of this robot said. And what are you gonna do, tin head? The sludge teased. I am Iron Man. His voice shouting the first 2 words caused the sludge to slightly liquefy before the final word was spoken normally as his hands raised and pulses of sound fired at her. The knight in red armor didn't give an inch in the assault. Freezing and punching the clumps. Switching to sonic attacks when the sludge got too close to her face. A round object was thrown at the sludge as a string had been fired out the machine's wrist to stick to her, pulling her out the sludge. A massive burst of cold blew her hair as a metal arm covered her from the blast. Katsumi saw the remaining pieces of slime in an ice block no bigger than a mini fridge. Katsumi had moved her hand to get a look at her metal hero. When her hand touched the gold part, it was like flesh. This was an actual person. The armored hero. Her hero at least, had grabbed the ice block and drilled into it with a tool, pulled out some compartment in his side. The eyes and some sludge placed in the cylinder, and the rest was incinerated with his hand blasters. The cylinder was handed to the cops and he flew off. He's all yours. All Might. I watched useless and weak as an innocent teen was going to die because of my stupid self. I'm so pathetic, All Might thought. A burst of cold stopped the fires and All Might had a small hoped Frost hero. Snowmaid was out of the hospital. An armored machine landed and demanded the girl be freed. When the pulse of sound had been fired, All Might was thinking, what is this thing? The sludge's ass was indeed turned to dust, leaving only the necessary parts to keep the villain alive, which was handed to the police. All Might nearly blew his cover when he saw the webbing save the girl. Midoriya. Toshinori watched him fly off and turned into All Might. I am here. All Might. Yes, I was investigating this strange machine. It is my assignment and I'd like to inform everyone it has not killed anyone, so if you see it, please do not attempt to apprehend it by force. All Might had thought up the quickest bluff he could to keep the media and other heroes off the green-haired boy. The girl was still in a state of shock. The heroes talking to her, but their words didn't seem to register. All Might had pulled the heroes to him and ordered them to just leave the machine alone. I need to fix a mistake. That thing. It said its name was Iron Man, Katsumi said. Izuku was flying around when something was approaching fast. All Might jumped up and said, pull over. Izuku landed and said, what can I do for you, sir? All Might deflated and said, we need to talk. Izuku lifted the faceplate and the narrow glare was what greeted Toshinori. I have nothing to say to you. No, but I do, Toshi said. I just watched a real hero work. Izuku just stared at him blankly. Toshi said, there are stories of the pros of the first time they saved someone. Each having a little variation, but one thing stays the same. Their body moves before their brain. They run to preserve human life, even at risk to themselves. Look, if you, Izuku started, but Toshi cut him off. But I also watched a pro at work there. Toshi said, usually a hero only has the tools to do one thing. Stop the fire or save the people. I witnessed a hero that was able to do both and limit property damage. I'm sorry I doubted you before. Izuku looked up at the man and said, it was a valid opinion. You have the right to one, but that doesn't mean it's right. Is there anything else you wanted to say, or can I go home and eat my dinner? Yeah, I got one more thing. Toshi said. My quirk was passed down like a sacred torch from user to user, collecting and storing energy from each one, becoming stronger with each generation. I was born quirkless until my mentor passed the quirk to me. Izuku's eyes widened before All Might transformed and said, Izuku Midoriya, I choose you to be the next wielder of my quirk. Izuku's jaw fell. You were quirkless. All Might nodded and Izuku seemed to be losing his mind. What do you say? Okay. Izuku said, dumbstruck. Midoriya house. Inko had smiled at him over the table. I ran into someone at the gym a few days ago. Really, who? Izuku asked. A certain bunny-themed hero. Inko said, pulling out an autograph. The rabbit hero. Mirko. Izuku shouted, looking at the paper. Yep, she was impressed with my athletic skills and asked if I was going to become a hero. When she found out I wasn't, she suggested something interesting I hadn't considered before. Inko said, snapping Izuku out of his All Might was quirkless shock. Inko pulled out an envelope with a badge and a slip of paper. You're looking at Volcanus's latest sidekick. Inko said, pretending it wasn't a big deal, knowing how much her son would like the news. Izuku had to blink away a few seconds before shouting, Jarvis, get the prototype Microseth. Right away, sir. Congratulations, Mrs. Midoriya, Jarvis said as the couch opened and a silver jumpsuit was lifted out. I can modify the underseth to improve the padding. Izuku said excitedly, my mom's a sidekick. Inko was handed the underseth and tried it on. Just tap the chest and it will adjust. I can add some reinforcements. You want a taser, or a flamethrower, or... I think it's fine as is. Inko said, looking at herself in the mirror. Maybe a little detail. It's a lot of silver. Okay, but I'm adding wrist blades and a comm link. Izuku said, pulling up a hologram and adjusting the suit. Inko smiled at her little boy at work. It was good he had other hobbies than hero stalking. So this is the same you have in your armor. Well, the main suit is a late alpha model. I just need the parts for the finished model. Izuku said. I'm making good strides with an aluminum and carbon mix, but I've got some ideas for a better one. Izuku said. Inko looked in the mirror and that feeling came back. The one in the gym and when she was with Mitsuki. Her life was definitely gonna be interesting. Mei. When she saw the flying armor, Mei had called Izuku and the green-haired inventor had told her to wait until tomorrow. Mei hadn't slept that night, too excited to learn about the suit. When Mei arrived with her notebook and a few blueprints, she saw the red and gold armor disassembled and laid out on the desk. Mei had looked at Izuku and he just nodded, saying, Stark Industries would like to purchase your services in the construction of a company project. This is a private project. Mei's eyes had started to glitter and she rushed over to see the blueprints of the Gilded Knight. Izuku showed her the plan and the goal of adding nano repulsors to the plates and making a thinner and stronger undersheath. I'm thinking, a composite. Mei read the notes and added her input. The two bounced back ideas, and when Izuku had mentioned Damascus steel, Mei had slammed her hands on the table. You know how to make Damascus steel. Izuku reached into his toolbox and pulled out a hammer. The metal looked as if it was a liquid metal frozen in place. Mei grabbed his shoulders and said, Teach me, senpai. Her eyes turned into hearts again. Izuku grabbed her hands and gently lifted them off him. Never call me that again. Mei hadn't said anything. All right, I'll teach you how to make it. But don't go spreading it around. I plan on using the recipe to start construction. Later, Mei had, after completely soiling the front of her panties, had been shown the structure and created a mix of metals and materials for a new undersheath. Where exactly are we gonna get that much platinum though? Well, we could mine it. Izuku said. Don't we need a mine? Mei said. Izuku pointed to his red armor and said, It's got a deep crust scanner. We could search Japan, or head to Africa, or any other country really. Mei nodded excitedly. Izuku checked the time and had to get Mei home. We can keep going. Mei, you need sleep, Izuku said. Mei tried to argue. If you sleep tonight, I'll make you new tools. Mei accepted the deal and Izuku suited up and took her home. After dropping Mei off, Izuku headed to the outskirts of town and began a deep scan of the land. Sunday. Izuku had woken up to find Mei ringing on his door first thing in the morning. Ready to get that platinum. Already got it. Let's get it smelted and see if the design works. Izuku said, yawning and heading into the garage. Izuku pulled out a Manrike of himself with ports around its body. The undersheath would be constructed of miniature triangles that folded and could store in an extremely compact form. The old sheath could fold into a softball-sized box, but if Mei's design and his new wiring plan worked, it could fit an entire sheath into a marble. Mei and Izuku worked tirelessly. Each triangle needed to be placed exactly the right way or the memory metal wouldn't unravel correctly. Hey, I always wondered, what's your quirk? Mei asked as she was working on the left arm as Izuku was up to his right mid-thigh. Does it really matter? Izuku asked, lifting his mask he was using to magnify his vision. What's your quirk? Oh, it's called zoom. I basically have an electron microscope in each eye. Mei said, tongue sticking out as she steadily applied the triangles. The two worked in relative silence. Izuku had finished up to the waist and Mei was putting on the final part of the abs. Jarvis, scan and run a wire diagnostic. Testing electrical connection now, sir. The Manrike had glowed as wires inside it had tested. Suit is sealed and properly constructed, sir. Hey, why does the Manrike have all these ports? Mei asked. You know how the other one is thicker and has a bunch of chips in it. Izuku said. This one won't. Mei looked at it, then back to Izuku, and a quick zoom in she saw a few scars. What did you need that ceramic carbine for again? A little biology project, Izuku said. Mei looked at him and his eyebrow raised. Where is the carbine? Mei asked. Izuku brought a hand to his face. In here, and down here, pointing around his body. Mei covered her mouth and she looked horrified. What's the problem? Izuku asked. Technology needs to go on. You won't get anywhere without pushing limits. But, to put something inside you without knowing if it works. I'm all for testing something, but not if it's installed into a human body. Mei said. Izuku tapped a button and the suit retracted into the ports of the clear Manrike. Tiny beads of the suit separated into the limbs and chest of the Manrike. No pellet bigger than an M&M. We can make more triangles and probably triple layer the entire thing, and each bead will be the size of a marble. Izuku said. Mei had actually stopped trying to decide if it was a good idea to let Izuku put these things into his body. Mei, I know it's a little much, but I can't let something stop me from putting as much as I can into finishing the suit. Will Ua even let you use this? Mei asked. Not for the entrance exam, but for an everyday hero costume. Izuku said. Mei gulped and nodded. Let's finish this thing. Monday afternoon. Izuku had met All Might at the beach and was pulling a fridge with one arm with All Might sitting on it. You're a lot stronger than you look. All Might said. Extremis. It's a bioforming virus that treats the body like a machine and overclocked its natural processes. Izuku said, demonstrating by heating up his hand and punching the fridge. It's no quirk, but it does its job. All Might had a look that Izuku could read, and yes, it could fix your lungs. Izuku said. All Might said, you're telling me you have all that and it isn't a quirk. When is something considered a quirk? A quirk is powered by subatomic vibrations. Every quirk has the ability to fuck reality up the ass if you get a good enough with it. The Yaoyorozu family can manufacture rare elements or even elements that don't exist. Meanwhile, Momo Yaoyorozu and her parents sneezed. An anti-gravity quirk could turn a black hole into a sun. Meanwhile, Uraraka Ochako sneezed and got sent flying into the wall of her bedroom. You think the human body can produce enough nitroglycerin to fill an Olympic swimming pool without dehydrating? Meanwhile, Katsumi sneezed. And don't even get me started on you or Endeavor. Izuku said. Frostmate is cold enough to create an atomic bomb if she tried. You have a nuclear plant's worth of energy in your cells. Endeavor creates flames that can't be extinguished by conventional methods. Meanwhile, Rei Todoroki sneezed and a nurse asked if she was okay. Elsewhere, Endeavor sneezed his morning paper to ashes. Ricky. He's on vacation, Endeavor, sir. A person on the intercom said. Oh right, how many vacation days does he have again? Endeavor asked. He has about 6 months saved. He's in the tropics for the next 2 weeks. Oh right, call him and tell him I want a shot glass. Right away, sir. Back at the beach. Quirks aren't mutation, they aren't something biological, they're metaphysical. They're forces of nature. Sure, genetics play a role in which one you have, but the quirk itself is the power of a god. All Might said, imagines of his master and the one who passed the quirk down to him. The number one hero had gone through his teenage years feeling completely useless, and the world reinforced that notion. Mommy, I wanna go home. A little Toshinori with a bloody nose and a broken toy melted into slag. I miss America. I miss Dad. His mother could only hug her child. All Might had tried so hard to get Nana's autograph and he got jumped before he could get to the signing. The breaking point was his girlfriend in bed with another guy and laughing in his face at how he thought he'd ever be anything but a failure. Toshinori was sitting on a bridge, nearly 18 years old, a case of beer he snagged from his mother's fridge. He had planned to jump. Then his hero saved him. The number one hero had talked to him that whole night. Toshinori had bled his heart that night. His life, his pain, and Nana didn't give him pity or shit for it. She gave him a choice. Jump or something special from her. He chose the second. All Might watched as a 5'8" shrimp picked up a washer and ripped it open. Hey kid, that armor of yours, how strong is it? Wanna test it out? Izuku asked, grinning. All Might watched as Izuku pulled out his phone and pressed a button. The suit was in front of them in a few minutes. You up for a few rounds? Izuku asked. All Might decided to give the boy a fighting chance and stay in his thin form. He could start Midoriya's exercise plan after he actually had an idea how strong he was. That was his first mistake in that fight. Izuku had floated and burst forward, grabbing the arm. All Might was gonna block the strike and swing around, forcing Toshinori's body to spin, and got rocket slammed into a pile of junk. All Might took a shallow deep breath and transformed. Izuku had thrown everything he could at the number one hero. With his pointer finger charged with his quirk, All Might blocked the strikes, but Izuku followed with a chained kick or punch. All Might had caught his leg and Izuku launched himself over All Might's head with his repulsors. A burst from the chest piece has cracked All Might's arms. Oh, I've had a crick in my shoulder for a few days. All Might said, moving his arms. Izuku growled and advanced. All Might caught his arm with ease. You've got form but you still lack strength. Izuku's eye slits turned red and a massive charge from his chest repulsor blasted All Might back. The number 1 hero brushed off his clothes. All Might laced his fingers and with a single crack a pulse of force staggered Izuku. Izuku opened his shoulder piece and a barrage of missiles flew towards All Might. The hero's eyes opened as he could grab 3 out the air but got hit by the other 17. Not a scratch. All Might reeled back a punch and shouted, Detroit SSSMMMAAASSHH. Izuku grabbed a fridge and chucked it at All Might and rushed forward using the kitchen appliances as a bullet monkey. The force of the punch sent Izuku flipping forward but he followed with an axe kick to All Might, forearms blocking the hit. All Might grabbed Izuku's ankle and threw him into the ocean. A loud bang had been what All Might heard before another metal fist met his face. Just a fist. A gloveless Izuku had punched him in the back of the head and suplexed All Might into the ground. Why does this feel familiar? All Might thought as his head was partly in the sand. A scissor headlock and a little torque had Izuku pinned. Impressive young Midoriya, but it will take. Izuku's mask opened and he spit in Toshinori's eye. When Izuku was free he grabbed a handful of sand and got it into All Might's face. This is why my eyes are narrowed when I fight. Gran Torino taught you this, year 1. All Might thought as he was focused on getting the sand out his eyes. Izuku ran through everything he could remember from his time with Tony. Rody, it might work. Izuku charged his repulsors and then focused the charge back to the main reactor. A small stream of beams connected in middle of his chest before a miniature ball of plasma was formed in front of Izuku's chest and fired with the main reactor right at All Might's face, resulting in a crater of glass surrounding a deflated All Might with a burned shirt. Izuku rushed forward and just started swinging. Toshinori was reacting to each attack. When the two got locked fist to palm, the two fought, sinking into the ground. All Might coughed up blood and Izuku's reactor started to smoke and power down. Shit. Both thought as they had been completely drained. Izuku was on his knees. All Might had a hand on his head in what All Might meant as a comforting gesture, but Izuku was having Thanos flashbacks. You definitely have my respect, Midoriya. I can see you being a hero in the future. I can beat you without a quirk. Izuku said, breathing heavily. I don't want it until I can. A valid option. But you know how powerful my quirk is. Toshinori said, wiping the blood off his own mouth. That was the closest thing I've had to an even fight in the last few months. Izuku actually gave me a chance to actually take stock of my quirk. Rematch. Izuku said. His armor power cell charged the main reactor to a passive function level. Give me a week. Toshinori chuckled and said, how about we do this again next Sunday? Izuku nodded. 2 months later, Izuku had cleared the beach and the two had their weekly sparring match. More Izuku trying to make so much as a scratch on All Might, and each fight got the same results. Both getting completely stopped by their respective time clocks. Izuku was clenching his fist. Next week. I look forward to it. All Might said, having actually enjoyed the fights without the fear of death like every villain he's ever faced. Izuku grit his teeth. I have the ingredients for the extremis. I can have it done before our next fight. All Might was about to say he was thankful when Izuku stood and looked All Might in the eye. If you lose, I smash the vial of it and never make another. This is a fight for your life. All Might could feel a coming storm. On the opposite side. I'll get you next time, old man. A young adult Toshinori said to Gran Torino. The old hero just smirked over his tea. All Might nodded and transformed before jumping away. Izuku waited till All Might was gone before pulling out his phone. May get your butt to my garage. We're hunting a god. A squeal had Izuku pulling his phone from his ear. Izuku rubbed his ear before walking home. He had a suit to build. Next morning. Next morning. The mother had woken up to her son and his friend working on a project. Sweaty, greasy, and the look of walking death after working all night. Sweetie, the company Christmas party is next week. Izuku gave an, okay, before going back to a hologram of a gauntlet. Inko could see a fire burning in her son. This wasn't a contingency project, as he called a number of his projects. This was intended to be used, and due to his lack of sleep Inko guessed very soon. I'm off to work. Stay safe, Izuku said. Endeavor. The second-place hero had been planning the next Saturday event very carefully. If Inko could bring her son, he could introduce Shoko. The boy had the body of a wannabe hero. An unshaped piece of metal to become his son-in-law. And his quirk. What the heck kind of mutt was this boy's father? Ceramic bones, accelerated healing, enhanced physical abilities. Not to mention the boy's training. Mastery of 2 martial arts and boxing ability. Endeavor wasn't directly told what Izuku's quirk was, but it definitely was impressive. Endeavor had found a few surprising things about Izuku. Most shocking was his quirk wasn't listed. Inko claimed Izuku was a late bloomer. Endeavor had seen pictures of Izuku's father, Inko's husband, and his only reaction was, why? A loving husband and a 10-inch, Inko was cut off by another sidekick spitting out her drink. Endeavor looked at the picture of his youngest daughter and thought, soon. Katsumi, she was busy training with her quirk, trying to stay in the air with her explosions. She was watching recordings of Iron Man rescuing her. The new posters she had custom ordered from pictures she found online hanging on her wall of her armored hero. Who was he? Where did he get so good? Was he single? Katsumi landed on her ass and growled. Damn it. Katsumi had stood and tried again. School. Katsumi saw Deku drawing in his goddamn book again. Katsumi saw it was a fresh one. She was considering burning it, like many before, but the beginning bell had the class sitting and listening to the teacher. Deku was still writing. Does he really think anything he writes in there will be of any use? He is nothing, and that's what he'll always be. He's supposed to be our friend. You're supposed to be his. The little girl in her head said. Bitch, I said shut up. Katsumi thought. You know he will get into UA, right? No, he won't. The little girl sat in her corner and huffed. I wonder what's Izuku's angel up to. Izuku's head. A winged, horned Izuku sat on a throne in Izuku's head. Tail flicking back and forth happily. Izuku did what many heroes and vigilantes had done. The angel and demon had merged as one. It wasn't a rare thing. People just had a mentality and morals that basically were a waste of mental energy arguing, so the angel and demon just kinda fade into one another. May was spot on with that kinetic bleeder design. The horned angel thought as he was busy working. A hand came chopping down and Izuku grabbed the wrist, completely ignoring the teacher. Outside Izuku's brain, Izuku looked up from his book to the teacher, surprised at his hand being blocked and in a surprisingly strong grip. You're a lot more interested in that notebook than class today, Midoriya. Well, unlike the class, what's in this book is something that is interesting. Oh, and how about you read it to the class? The teacher said, trying to embarrass the usually socially awkward boy. The Izuku in Izuku snorted as he was about to go full Tony Stark on this fool. Strutting to the teacher's desk and sitting on it. Glady. Chapter 1 of the Anarchist Quirk Book, Volume 37. Endeavor quirk could be countered with a synthetic sweat injected via a dart gun. The chemicals could bind to his pores and prevent the fires from getting enough air or fuel to burn. Footnote 1. It is highly likely it could cause his body to overheat and roast itself from the inside out. Izuku dramatically licked his finger and turned the page. Katsumi Bakugo. From the muscle growth in her forearms and shoulders since first manifestation of her quirk, my theory of her being able to create explosions with her feet is yet to be tested, because while she sticks to a standard fitness routine and mainly focuses on her upper body, my theory cannot be confirmed. Due to the layout of the muscles in relation to her quirk, she could theoretically active explosive kicks before UA if she focuses on ass and leg training. Izuku read on until the bell rang and the class just sat there as Izuku exposed chinks in the armor of 20 heroes and suggested half the class ways to improve themselves. Katsumi looked down at her feet. I've tried creating exploding kicks, Katsumi thought. You haven't tried actually working out like Izuchan said, the young angel said. Katsumi left, and when she got home she saw her mother getting ready for a trip to the gym. I need to join your gulp pole dancing class. Mitsuki eyebrow raised and Katsumi barked out her excuse before her mother could even suggest anything. Izuku garage 3 days later. May was looking at the reinforced suit and said, "Who are you afraid you'll fight with this thing?" All Might, Izuku said as he was going over the add-ons. May's eyes widened. You're gonna attack All Might? No, I'm gonna battle him, Izuku said. May's jaw fell. You're insane. Why on earth would you want to? Because I have something to prove, Izuku said. What could possibly be proven by fighting All Might? Mei shouted. That just because you have a quirk doesn't mean you're a god, Izuku said. It's a message I plan to teach this world, but first I need to prove it to myself. That's common sense, Mei said. Not to everyone. Hell, you make me think I'm talking to a higher being sometimes, Izuku said, frowning as he looked at her. Mei grabbed a box knife and handed it to Izuku and cut her finger on it. Mei held up the cut and said, just 'cause I have a quirk doesn't make me any less human than you. It's because you have a quirk that makes you more human, Izuku said. Mei, 89% of the world have quirks. That's the majority. The fact that I don't have a quirk. What does that make me? Something every human has is just absent. Mei hugged Izuku. You don't need a quirk to be great. You're a genius inventor. Look at what we accomplished. Mei gestured to the suit. You don't need a quirk to become great. You don't need to fight All Might to prove anything. Thanks for the sentiment, but, Izuku said, grabbing Mei a bandage and some disinfectant. I need to get this off my shoulder. I need to prove myself wrong. Kissing the bandage, a reflex from raising Morgan. When is the fight? Mei said. This Saturday, Izuku said. I need to get rest for the next 2 days. Mei looked at Izuku, then the suit and the All Might poster on the wall. Are you gonna install the new undersheath? No, I don't plan on taking the Extremis 3 until I feel like it's ready, Izuku said. I figured out a way to flip the photoreceptors in the eye to remove the blind spot and increase reaction time. Mei had been given an explanation of the Extremis, and when Izuku explained how his mother and him were already on Extremis 2, she was tempted to accept some Extremis 3 when Izuku finished it. Mei was a mechanic. Izuku was an all-around jack of all fields inventions. Mei was definitely smart enough to build his suit eventually, but she'd never come close to his advancement in biology or other fields of science. Izuku was a jack of all trades, master of none. Mei had often suggested he'd be a master if he focused on building only, but Izuku had told her his drive was in hero work. He'd probably resort to selling nukes or becoming a merchant of death without his hero personally. Mei didn't get his logic, but Izuku had refused to tell her anything more. I'm coming to watch the fight, Mei said. I need to make sure the upgrades survive. Izuku nodded, looking at the suit. The new reinforced plates were green instead of Izuku red ones, and instead of solid pieces they were leafed metal. Mei had been working on improving Izuku outer plates while Izuku was busy with something he called PIM particles, another secret in that brain of his. He had shrunk her SSL battery to become commercially viable and started selling them through his company, with her permission of course. Izuku had more knowledge about running a business than she did. Him giving her a fair 40%, with the other 40 going to manufacturing and 20 to Stark Industries. Mei had gotten a look at Izuku's notebook and had to rub her eyes at the details and inventions that the only thing stopping him from making was a money wall. It blew her notebook out of the water, yet had she been in the reverse she'd have tried to hold it over his head. A lot of kids in her high school had called her annoying or weird for her inventions. Izuku had a humbleness that Mei didn't think her ego would allow. The suit is ready for the fight. Let's work on something else tonight, Izuku said. You got any projects you want to complete? I'm working on a rocket idea, Mei said, pulling out her notebook. Izuku took it and pulled out a pen, crossing out a few things and adding a few things. Here, we can get a prototype done before morning. Mei looked at it and smiled. Oh, imagine the babies we could get into space with this. Toshinori, as I sat on the remaining junk piled high in the bed of an old pickup, I can't help but think of what was about to go down. Young Midoriya wasn't someone to expect a different outcome when doing the same thing. He definitely had a plan, and as much as All Might wanted that in his apprentice, he also wanted his lungs and stomach back. When Izuku arrived, he was already in full armor, but also had a large container under his left arm and a briefcase in his right hand. A pink-haired girl was with him, carrying a wooden box and a cooler. Young Midoriya. Who is this? Mei Hatsume, CEO of Mei Hatsume Inc. and head junior mechanic of Stark Industries. Izuku said, this battle is classified as a field test of the Hulkbuster Exosuit Mark 2.5. She is here to help make sure all systems are primed and ready for the fight. I also brought drinks and a second aid kit. Don't you mean first aid? All Might said. No, Mei said, putting a backpack on the sand, causing a large amount to disperse. Izuku pressed a button on the container and pieces of metal plates floated around him. Mei helped with checking the extra cores and primed the armor. Izuku removed his main arc reactor and swapped out the core. Izuku held up a metal briefcase. In this is a single dose of Extremis 2.0 in an injector. This is a fight till the other falls. No nutshots, no executions. Everything else is fair game. The ocean is fair game. Let's try to avoid the pier. Agreed? Toshinori nodded. Izuku handed Mei the prize and the Hulkbuster linked up. Call it. Mei moved a safe distance and pulled out a work rag out her back pocket. Ready? Fight. Waving it like a certain 18+ hero would. Mei yelped as she was thrown back at a pulse of sound shattering the truck windows and kicking up sand. The two had advanced and fists connected. All Might's eyebrow raised. Impressive. Last time this happened it shattered your glove. Izuku launched 2 clamps out his shoulder that landed on All Might's upper arms. The electricity forced them to bend. He couldn't throw a punch. A fist swung at Toshinori's face. The number 1 hero blocked and a repeated hammering punch from Izuku's other arm was attempting to turn his ribs into hamburger meat. All Might axe kicked Izuku's arm and the boy's knee flew up and hit All Might's face. Izuku grabbed Yugi and spun with some repulsor boosts. All Might was in the air and Izuku opened his shoulder firing microshots into All Might. All Might, having been through this before, had kicked 19 of them away and caught the last one in his teeth and spit it back at Izuku who sidestepped it. A unibeam slammed into the rapidly falling All Might. All Might grabbed the electro clamps and ripped them off, falling fist first into the beam. Detroit SSSMMMAASSHH. Mei was heard screaming but Izuku countered it with a roundhouse pinning All Might's arm to the ground and Izuku hit him with a right uppercut and then a left cross. Ow! Toshi said sarcastically before a loud banging of explosions in Izuku's elbow from the rocket-assisted hammer arm rapidly slammed into his temple. By the 8th hit All Might leaned his head back and one of his teeth got sent flying out his jaw. All Might broke the hold and threw Izuku into the ocean running after him. He felt his gum with his tongue and thought, does the Hero Association cover dental? Wait. Shit. Another mini-missile was headed for All Might's face which he leaned back to dodge but then a larger one slammed into the back of his head sending him forward into a repulsor punch from Izuku flying towards him. All Might felt blood running down his face. Shit, am I running out of time already? Wait, that's my nose not my mouth. All Might thought, realizing he had a broken nose. Izuku swung and Toshinori caught the boy's arms ripping the gauntlets off. Izuku got his arm around the hero's neck and rocketed himself between All Might's legs flipping the hero on his back. Line break. They're gonna die. Mei thought. She hadn't expected much when she came here. All Might ripping her babies to shreds mostly and then pinning Izuku down to not hurt him. There was no way a few gauntlets and boots made of scrap was gonna go against the greatest hero of the country. Izuku was putting up an actual fight, and All Might was actually fighting back. This wasn't a one-sided hero putting a child in a corner, this was a battle between gods. That was her only word to describe this. Kings of Infinity. A titan of hope versus the new god of willpower. 2 complementing forces duking it out for reasons she didn't even fully grasp. No wonder Izuku had trouble seeing people with quirks as higher entities. It was gruesome. It was bloody, it was glorious. Line break. The two traded blow for the next 2 hours. Izuku armor was down to the undersheath and faceplate. His face was showing the damages. A split lip and a black eye and brushes everywhere. All Might had a broken blood vessel in his right eye and his right shoulder was fractured. His insides were probably liquid at this point if his own guess was anything to go by, if his fight with AFO was a good measure. All Might coughed up blood and Izuku saw his reactor was low. Jarvis overclocked the main reactor. Sir, that is. I don't want to hear it, Jarvis. Izuku screamed before rushing forward. All Might blocked and the final hit had turned him back to his thin form. All Might eyes widened and Izuku just kept pushing him back. All Might mustered up all the energy he could into one of his arms. United States of Smash. The semi-transformed All Might shouted. Some might. Sort of might. Izuku reactor started to smoke as he shut off the suit's safeties. The suit was sending electricity directly into his muscles to override his body's limit in his muscles. Without his polyweave his heart would have exploded. Without his tungsten carbine his bones would be dust. Without the extremis his nerves would be shot and his muscles would make a paraplegic look like All Might in his prime. All for a single punch. Liberty's coup de grâce. Izuku shouted. The two fists connected and Mei had booked it the second she heard the word united. She watched from a safe distance as the two collided. The ground zero of the punch had turned the ground to a solid piece of glass from ocean to street. You could see everything buried under the sand. Izuku armor peeled off his skin, leaving him in only his black boxer briefs and All Might in his surprisingly mostly intact Gold Age costume. It was destroyed from the waist up. The sudden wardrobe malfunction showed Mei the level of damage these two had left one another in. And they were still fighting. The last 5 minutes of the fight was a heartless Izuku and a deflated Toshinori. Iron Man outlasted All Might, but Izuku and Toshinori were still fighting. Both bruised, beaten, broken and shirtless. And with equal savagery and equal smiles, missing a few teeth. Left, right, left, right. A loud ringing echoed through the beach as both landed an uppercut on the other, dropping them both out cold. Both bodies hit the ground at the same time. Mei rushed over with a spare palladium core and a glove to get the still smoking reactor. Mei put in the new core and replaced the arc reactor. Mei treated All Might injuries as best she could. She knew enough to stop the external bleeding. Izuku's body was regenerating the muscles that got fucking exploded off his body. All Might's phone started beeping and Mei answered it. Mei Hatsume speaking. Oh hi dear, I was just calling because a hero did something stupid, senses tingling. Is All Might in any danger or injured? A voice asked. Mei looked at the two and said, you know, I think you might want to get some kind of transportation here. I can't really explain what I just saw. What's the closest you can describe it? She asked. She sounded as if she was already moving. Mei looked at the part of the beach turned glass. God can bleed, Mei said. We're on our way. Mei watched as the two were loaded into an ambulance. She had managed to get the scraps of Izuku's armor to keep others from finding it. The emergency vehicles arrived just in time for the fans to swarm. Mei hadn't heard if anyone found out Izuku's identity. A well-dressed dog, mouse, panda, and an old woman with a cane had met her at the entrance of Ua College. Izuku and Mei had the same excitement to see it for the first time, but Izuku was brought in unconscious and Mei was actually afraid for their lives. The babies born here will be glorious, Mei thought, but her focus was on her friend, Miss Hatsume. The principal said, I wish this meeting was under better circumstances. I have no idea how this started, Mei said. I got a call from Izuku saying he was fighting a god and went with it. Was this an attack? Recovery Girl asked, looking at both comatose men. From how it started it was consensual, Mei said. All Might was waiting for Izuku. Interesting, Nezu said. How did his underwear survive? Recovery Girl questioned. Let me check. Carbon nanotubes. Line break. Beep, beep, beep. All Might had shot up, gasping in pain as he remembered what happened. Midoriya. A grumbling from the bed next to Toshinori had given an answer. Young Midoriya. Izuku had an IV in his arm and didn't have any visible injuries. His chest, however, had a hole in it with a wire connected to a wall outlet. His arc reactor sitting on the table beside him. No, you can't make me play the Pocky game, Izuku muttered in his sleep. Midoriya. All Might shouted, shifting for a second before coughing up more blood. That was a mistake, a very painful mistake. Izuku opened his eyes and looked around. Shit, which hospital are we in? You're not in a hospital, a voice said. A slam of a cane on the ground slowly panned up to a white-knuckled hand, a scowl on a wrinkled face. The youthful hero, Recovery Girl, was in front of them. And she was not happy. You two have a lot of explaining to do, Recovery Girl said. You're basically quirkless again. Pointing her cane at All Might, then turning to Izuku. And your medical file says you should be quirkless, yet you're fine. Somehow you both show up in my medical wing beaten half to death by one another. Look, Recovery Girl, I had. Crack. The walking stick was slammed into the bed frame, cutting off the number one hero. What is it? You insist you want to keep going as a hero even with half a respiratory system, and then I find out you're in a death match with a 17-year-old. Recovery Girl said, glaring at All Might. Technically it wasn't a death match and I'm Izuku was also cut off by another crack. Silence, she said, a dark aura over her. You are so lucky that, unlike you, I took an oath to do no harm. Chio, I had to, Toshinori said, it was the only way to fix me. How was beating a child in a fight gonna fix you? Recovery girl screamed. Extremis. Both said simply, pardon. Izuku got up and staggered for a moment. Slow down boy, your body was breaking down the painkillers faster than we could give it to you. When we took out that thing in your chest you nearly OD'd. If that girl hadn't connected you to the wall you'd be dead. Izuku waved her off as he pulled out the wire and popped in his reactor. Woo baby, Izuku shouted as his heart kicked up again. Izuku pounded his chest a few times and letting out a howl. Izuku grabbed the case from the table. He opened it and pulled out the injector. He primed it and approached All Might. Okay, this is gonna hurt like shit for the next few days. Recovery girl had hooked her cane on Izuku's arm. You are not injecting All Might with that until I know what the fuck is in it. Extremis, Izuku said. Once injected All Might's body will be completely repaired. How? Recovery girl shouted. You know how caterpillars turn into butterflies. It's basically that, Izuku said. All Might's body will be liquid for a few days at most, then he'll be up and kicking villain ass before we know it. Izuku moved to inject it and Recovery girl tried to stop him, but Toshinori stopped her. Please, let him do this. The look of a man with nothing to lose was what looked at Recovery girl. He saved his mother from a deep coma. She's now a sidekick for Endeavor. It could fix me. Recovery girl huffed and said, fine, but I want a complete explanation of that serum. Midoriya, before I go under, you defeated All Might, Toshinori said. But you got up first. You won. No, Toshinori won. All Might was out of that fight the second I deflated. Iron Man beat All Might. Toshinori plucked a hair from his head and Izuku shook his head. You're gonna need that, Izuku said. Probably not a good idea to lose what is keeping you alive right now until after you're fixed. Okay, All Might smiled. I'd suggest an IV drip. He's got a lot of repairs to be done, Izuku said. Recovery girl hooked All Might up and Izuku held the injector to Toshinori's neck. Plus Ultra, Toshinori said. Plus Ultra, Izuku said before hitting the button. All Might started coughing up a black sludge that encased his body. A massive cocoon of liquid covered the bed with the tube sticking out of it to feed All Might directly. Izuku had explained everything about the Extremis except where he first learned how to make it. Recovery girl jaw had fallen. Are you sure you don't have some kind of mind quirk? Izuku pulled out an X-ray out his wallet and showed her. Extra toe joint and all. Izuku checked his phone and got a text from his mother. Where are you? Hanging with May. Okay, be home before 10. Izuku checked his clock and cursed. 9:30, I gotta be home. He got up and a mouse, dog, panda appeared. Allow me to give you a ride, young man. Wouldn't want your parents to worry. Principal Nezu. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku said, shaking his paw. Nice to meet a chimera who values the intellectual dominance that got the human race where it is today. Nezu's jaw fell. What did you call me? Chimera. That's your species, isn't it? Izuku asked. Nezu saw a slack-jawed recovery girl staring at the boy. We've been looking for a title for his species for years. Smart boy, Nezu thought as he led Izuku to his car. So do you play chess? 4D or hexagonal? Yojiku asked. Line break. Izuku house. When Izuku got dropped off, he had agreed to swing by the school to talk with Nezu about the armor and Izuku notebooks. Izuku saw his mother sleeping on the couch and put a blanket over her before going to the garage. Inside were the scraps of the destroyed suit and the arc reactors lined up on the desk neatly. Izuku sat at his workbench and logged in. A bit late, isn't it, sir? Jarvis said. Yeah, Izuku said. Hey Jarvis, pull up an internet search. Chernobyl. Accessing now. Chernobyl, or Chornobyl, is the name of a city situated in northern Ukraine near the border with Belarus. Ukraine was part of the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, on the 26th of April 1986 when the disaster occurred. The city is now within the 30 kilometers exclusion zone that surrounds the nuclear power plant. Okay, so that's the same in this world, Izuku said, pulling up a document and plugging in a few things. Jarvis, render this suit design. Yes, sir. Jarvis said before a model of a reflective black suit with inner orange parts. Sir, am I to assume these are radiation absorption panels? Yeah, time to do some hero work the old-fashioned way. Izuku said. Mark this suit hazmat and run a material cost. Estimated cost of material 5,475,749 yen and 55 sen, $50,000. Delivery an additional 2,737,874 yen and 77 sen, $25,000 if we wish to avoid any flags. Jarvis said. Save this project and close it. Look for any buildings available for sale in Tokyo. Izuku said. Cheaper is better, but I need enough wiggle room. Am I to assume close to a Krispy Kreme, sir? Jarvis asked before a few property listing appeared. How's my bank account doing? Calculating the breakdown of your recent Dagoba Municipal Beach Park cleaning. 235,128 yen and 69 sen. Adding that to your existing saving, your liquid wealth totals to 4,583,530 yen and 92 sen, $41,853 currently in your possession. Monthly spending 3,000 yen. Izuku clicked a page and said, this one. Scheduling an appointment with the realtor. Jarvis said. Izuku looked over to the scrap and said, pull up Project America's ass. A red and blue shield appeared. Izuku tapped it and cut the image and started designing an internal system. Next Saturday, Izuku adjusted his tie and suit. Web launcher, repulsor gauntlets, autograph book. Inko in a modest cocktail dress had interrupted his freakout as he got ready for the party. Sweetie, it's just a formal endeavor throws. Izuku stepped into his flight boots and clicked on a leather cover so they looked like regular shoes. Mom, it's literally the second biggest party of heroes in the country after the Yaoyorozu pool party. I need to make a good impression. How's the fireproof dress? Fits wonderfully, sweetie. Inko said. Thank you for not going overboard with it. Bulletproof and auto cleaning is enough. Izuku said. For tonight. The employees usually had to take the back entrance for the party, but Endeavor, unknown to the Midoriya clan, wanted Inko and Izuku in the mood to bargain, so they were picked up in a limo. Mei had arrived in a dress and her goggles on her head. Izuku had been allowed a +1, and after drilling Mei on how to chameleon her way in these places took her. A lot of heroes were here and a lot of inventors. Hatsume Inc. was still in the business of support gear even if Stark Industries wasn't. Izuku actually got the patents for both companies and would handle the business side of Mei's company since she had minimal knowledge at best on dealing with it. They loaded into the limo and Izuku spoke. May I mean it, anything you and me built using my tech can't be shown off. Stark tech can't be seen in the hands of anyone unless it's for something important. Why don't you wanna make support gear? Mei asked. Come on, think of the babies we could make with it. A wrist-mounted tank missile, a shoulder-mounted scatter missile, wrist lasers, an orbital bombardment tactical satellite, a Jericho nuclear-tipped warhead. Izuku said, May the repulsors and arc reactor could level a country if I'm not careful. The last thing this world needs is an incentive to build things like that. You built the suit, Mei said, because I know what happens if I just let anyone use it. Izuku said, Look, Mei, some people are corrupted by that much power. Vengeance on their enemies. My vengeance is being a hero. Vengeance is me living a life I know will help people. Vengeance in my company pushing this world to be, well, plus ultra. Inko and Mei had started crying at this. Stop crying, we need to look the best we can. Izuku said, You got your inventions. Yep, Mei said. What are you planning on showing off? Izuku tapped a button on his shirt and turned invisible before turning back. Mei's eyes turned to stars. The limo came to a stop and Izuku had Mei get out first, then him, and he'd help his mom out. Mei waved to the paparazzi pointing to her goggles and Izuku stopped mid-carpet and turned invisible, then back winking to the crowd as Inko just waved. Line break. Endeavor looked around and found Izuku. Midoriya, glad you could make it. Endeavor said. Izuku said, Well, I had time so might as well. Great you could make it. Hey, could you sign this for me? Izuku said, pulling out a piece of graphene. Endeavor eyes widened. I thought the factory burned down before they could release these. I dug through the ashes. Izuku said, Burn. The card, Endeavor shouted. Endeavor signed it with a Sharpie Izuku had on him and asked Izuku if he wanted to meet his daughter. She just passed her entrance test and will be going next year on recommendations. Interesting, Izuku said. Glad to meet her. Endeavor smiled. Great. Line break. I hate this, Shoko thought as she looked in the reflection at her current attire. A long red and white dress tailor-made at her father's orders. It was like she was wearing a cloud, but she hated it. She prefers normal clothes, and at least her father permits those in non-formal events. Her hair was up in a bun. Yuck. Shoko liked her hair down and covering her left eye. She didn't even attempt to cover her burn with makeup. It made her eye looks weird. She was the spitting image of a princess, but she definitely felt like one, from the 1800s. A toy for her father to bargain with or turn her to what he wants her to be. Her father had spoken of a boy planning on getting into UA and most likely going to be in her class. Probably some pompous overweight prick with 100 years of inbreeding on his holy fucking shit. Who was that? Shoko looked at the person her father was leading into the room. Everything screamed average except his hair and eyes. Green locks that didn't look like any gel could hold. Eyes like emeralds in the light of the chandelier. Shoko watched as he walked over to her with her father speaking. This is my youngest daughter and my greatest creation. Shoko, this is Izuku Midoriya, Izuku said, introducing himself. I heard you're getting into UA. Shoko responded in the same flat tone like she did for every person her father introduced to her. Yeah. Izuku's face went to a bored expression and said, cool. Endeavor told the two to sit here and talk for a while. I'm here to get autographs from the heroes. Izuku said. 10 minutes tops. Endeavor nodded and left. Izuku tapped his phone and said, Jarvis, check for any listening devices in the area. Scanning now, sir. The phone responded. 5 cameras, 12 auto recorders and 1 heat sensor. Set them to a video loop with the audio cut. Izuku said. A circle appeared on Izuku's phone and the person on the phone confirmed they were shut off. Sorry, I don't like people recording me, Izuku said, taking a seat on the couch. Shoko sat down and looked at the boy. So, she said. What goes into the entrance test? Izuku said. Well, I had to fill out papers with my quirk and abilities. Shoko said. Well, that should be easy since I don't have one. Izuku said, smiling. Shoko's eyes widened and her mouth fell. You're quirkless, and my father let you within arm's reach of me. Izuku smirked and said, I know I'm the best. That was when he officially had her interest. Izuku and her talked about training and what levels Izuku was going to become a hero. Izuku demonstrated his enhanced strength and explained his bone plating. Wow, when you put it like that, what I went through seems so pathetic, Shoko said, putting a hand to her eye. Izuku grinned and said, hey, you can either cry about it or learn from it. I got my ass handed to me by nearly everyone in my life and look where I am now. Sitting in front of the daughter of the Hero Association's 2nd place and the future 3rd best hero. 3rd, Shoko said, narrowing her eyes. Well, I am gonna be number 1. Then, someone I know will be a top hero. But hey, 3rd place is still good, Izuku said. Shoko pouted and her hand started icing. Izuku popped out his repulsor and charged it. Easy girl. Shoko immediately remembered what she was looking at. You're Iron Man. Shoko's eyes stopped. Glad to meet a fan, Izuku said, grinning. Shoko's eyes were glittering as she looked at the greenette. An alarm on his phone beeped and Izuku said, well, time's up. I'd love to keep up this talk, but I came for a reason and one reason only. I'm getting those autographs. Izuku saw Shoko frown and he handed her a card. Stark Industries with a number at the bottom. Call if you ever wanna talk. But not tonight. Shoko looked down at the card and looked up to see Izuku left already. Line break. Izuku had gotten 157 autographs that night with the party winding down. Izuku saw Shoto in a corner and decided to tip the DJ to play something he could at least lighten her mood. Izuku shot out a web, pulling her up into the dance floor. One dance won't kill me, Izuku said, smirked. Shoko had started moving with him leading. A few times she stepped on his foot and he didn't even seem to notice. A few cameras and phones were recording the two, but Shoko was in a completely different world, only containing the boy in front of her. However, Izuku noticed. A few web shots timed right to stick the phones and cameras to surfaces the two weren't being recorded. The song ended and Izuku left Shoko back to the corner she was in with a goodbye. Line break. The girl had gotten home and headed to her room happy for the first time in a while. Random junkyard. Do you believe aliens exist? Mei asked. I don't believe I know. Izuku said, helping Mei get a few pieces for one of her projects. And they're completely willing to stomp us like a bug. Are you sure about that? Mei asked. Do you think there are? Izuku asked, eyes glazing over. I really don't know. I mean, what are the chances they're out there? Mei asked. What are the chances a lab rat mistakenly got out and created the Q factor? Izuku asked. I mean, Mei actually stopped to ponder that. Quirks started with one person. It wasn't the glowing boy. Izuku said. It was intentional. And the reason there are no aliens is they intentionally ignore us. We stopped our astrology programs and the only reason we have satellites is people want cell phones. So what do you think about the quirk thing? The human race would be seeding other planets had quirks not been discovered. I think the reason we don't see any is they don't give two shits about us. Izuku said. Them showing up would mean the Earth is fucked. Come on, what's the chance every alien we meet would be here to kill us all? I'd say pretty likely. Izuku said. Come on. Not one is friendly. I think it's not a good idea to invite them. Izuku said. I want to explore the stars. I want to build creations that would make the pyramids look like an IKEA coffee table. Mei had started thinking. Izuku thought on his own ideas. I know this sounds weird, but what faith do you hold? Mei asked. Neural physics. Izuku said. The belief of living time. Mei blinked. It's not something people preach. Think of the universe as one entity. The past, present and future all encompassed as one thing. You were born, living and dead at this very moment. The Big Bang isn't in the past, it's still happening and will continue to happen. Mei sat down and looked at Izuku as he explained. All good and evil in the world is merely the universe experiencing itself. This is why I believe in letting the villains live. Good can't exist without evil, and to attempt to destroy either will result in tragedy. So is the universe like an egg? Mei asked. A rather good comparison, but that would imply it's waiting to hatch. The universe isn't a fetus, it's a fetus, baby, child, teen, adult, elderly and dead all at once. We all are the neurons of the universe experiencing itself. What we're doing right now is simply two neurons firing off. Life, souls, spirit, all this, metabolic energy of the universe is what I can describe it as. Whoa, Mei said. Yeah, Izuku said, looking up. Do you think we'll live in space one day? Mei asked. Stark Industries space habitats. Izuku said. Not that difficult to do when I have fusion reactors the size of a brick that can run a suit of power armor for years. Why do you constantly switch out cores? Mei asked. 'Cause I lack a specific element that I lack the funding to create. Izuku said. Normally an arc reactor should last for decades before replacing a core, but normal people don't get into a fist fight with All Might. Mei nodded. So what metal is that? Number 119. Potassium. Izuku said, smirking. You made a new element? Mei asked. I have a plan to make one. But again, I don't have the money to build a particle accelerator. He took a sip of his sports drink. Yet. So if you make that, what's your plans for it? Mei asked. Powering the world. Izuku said, smiling. Mei and Izuku looked up at the night sky. So you really think aliens are out there planning to destroy us? Meanwhile, I'm sure I'm just being a little paranoid. Izuku said. Meanwhile, in another galaxy, Asgard, Odin stood before his two sons. Do you know what you have started? Ow, my ass is killing me. Katsumi thought as she was getting dressed for school. She had been aggressively training her legs to try and unlock an explosive kick. Doubling her gym time, joining a kickboxing class when she wasn't in her Muay Thai classes, plus the Hag's pole dancing class has definitely made a difference. But nothing yet of her kicks. A notification on her phone interrupted her. A media post about a green-haired boy with the ability to turn invisible had danced with the daughter of Endeavor. Katsumi's eyes widened when she saw pictures of Izuku on a red carpet and a brief video of Deku in a black suit dancing with a red and white-haired girl. Is this boy the future husband of Endeavor's perfect daughter? The post read. Katsumi blasted her phone apart in absolute fury. Deku can turn invisible. Deku was with that bitch. Deku had a quirk. Deku danced with that cunt. Deku had a quirk. Katsumi got dressed and Mitsuki shouted she wasn't replacing Katsumi's phone again. Line break. Katsumi had been glaring at Deku all day. When class ended, Izuku was already out the door when Katsumi rushed and slammed him into the locker. Talk, she demanded. Izuku's eyebrow raised. You're gonna need to be more specific. Endeavor's party, Katsumi said, setting off a few explosions. I made a suit that displaces light, allowing me to become transparent. Izuku said, still in the testing phase, but good enough for a demo in a fancy party. Katsumi's face was still contorted in rage. So you're still quirkless. Why would I want one? Izuku asked. Katsumi had huffed and said, who was that bitch? If you found out from the same news media I frequent, then you should know. Izuku said. I want to hear it from you. Katsumi said, Shoko Todoroki. She's one of the students that got into UA on recommendations. She's my mother's boss's daughter. Izuku said. Recommendations? Katsumi said weakly. Yeah, she already has a place in Class 1A when our school year starts. Izuku said. Already has a. Katsumi let go of Izuku and started to process that bitch didn't even need to get in with the entrance test. Ain't that kick in the ego? Angel Katsumi said to the devil Katsumi. Shut up. The devil blonde shouted, sparking. Katsumi had been distracted, so Izuku snuck away and slipped into the alley behind the school. Line break. Stark Industries. Izuku arrived at the warehouse and began working. By the time Mei got there, Jarvis was wired into the entire building. This is so cool, Mei screamed, voice echoing through the empty building. Jarvis, construct a virtual walk around of the building. At once, sir, Jarvis said as a blue scanner swept the building. Virtual landscape constructed. Izuku handed Mei a pair of goggles and put on his helmet. Pull up the schematics for Project Big Daddy. Large-scale arc reactor pieces rendered. Izuku started a simulated construction of the reactor and moved the massive thing around, finding out where to put it. Right in the middle of the factory would work, Mei said. No, then we wouldn't have a rift through the building. Izuku said. Oh Jarvis, knock down that wall. Mei said. You heard the lady, Izuku said. The simulator showed the wall being knocked down and Izuku added a dome skylight and expanded the building. Visible from the front entrance and out of the way of any projects. Perfect. Jarvis, connect the water main and estimate the full-sized model and a running cost. Power output estimated 56,376,900 gigajoules. Water bill at 10,000 USD. Mei blinked. Weight 56,376,900 thats. That could power a fourth of Japan. Seems enough for now, Izuku said, grinning. Once I get a skyscraper and fit the Mark II reactor, we can really start powering the world. Mei felt a shiver down her back at the thought of something she helped build being used to power the world. Sir, I've run the numbers and renting the necessary equipment would cost too much to not cause some flags to go up, Jarvis said. Pull up the most broke construction company currently with an official record and zero mafia ties. Uraraka Construction. Estimated net value in the red. Get them on the phone and schedule a meeting at the bank. Izuku said, and get me about 10% shares in Stark Industries ready for transfer. Stark Construction is ready to begin. So you got the name? Mei asked. Yep, paperwork came in and I'm officially allowed to hire people legitimately. Izuku said, reaching into his pocket and handing Mei something attached to a lanyard. This will get you into any Stark Industries building. Izuku said, we can collab on other pro-hoof. Mei had put him in a bone-crushing hug, attempting to lift him but realizing he's heavier than she originally thought. Thank you. I also made you these. Izuku wheezed out, handing her a box. This time Mei had lifted Izuku but ended up falling forward. Thank you, thank you, Mei shouted. The two looked at one another and slowly. Sir, I have scheduled an appointment with one Uraraka Grant. The two had realized where they were and Mei got off Izuku. Thank you, Jarvis, Izuku said dryly. Line break next day. Uraraka Grant was a simple man. He loved his family, never cheated on his wife, didn't ruffle any feathers, followed every code in the book to begin his company. A company falling apart. His life's goal of starting his own business had been a nightmare from the start. Quirks. The death of his company. When a licensed hero started their own company, they could use quirks or hire people with them to do things much faster and cheaper. A government job could get you a limited-use quirk license, but what job could zero gravity do for the government? Grant thought. Cementos could repair an entire city block in minutes. So with his dignity and integrity intact, he had responded to a request from a company to buy his life's work. Stark Industries. Waiting for him was a green-haired boy about my daughter's age. Dressed in jeans and a muscle shirt with a weird light in his chest. Mr. Uraraka, the young man said, shutting off his blowtorch and taking off his sunglasses. Glad to meet you, he said, shaking my hand. American. Grant thought. The handshake was firm. This kid had arms that made most of his dwindling employees look like noodles. The eye contact had reminded him of those lectures about business dealings. American handshakes were firm with eye contact. I looked it up cause I knew Japanese but I learned they do have handshake etiquette. Izuku spent 50+ years as an American billionaire arms dealer. His instinct was a handshakes, but he backed up and bowed 30 degrees. I am glad you came today, Mr. Uraraka. Thank you. You must be Mr. Midoriya. Grant bowed back. I wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Well, let's get to my office, Izuku said. The office had a simple folding table with a laptop on it. The building is newly bought, so we're still moving in. I see. So I'm guessing you're expanding from another country? Grant asked. Mr. Worldwide, Izuku said, grinning. So your contact said you were willing to buy my company at asking price? Grant said, sitting on the chair across from Izuku. Correct. Stark Construction needs to begin its Japan branch, and it is easier to absorb an existing one. I'm happy to help local businesses thrive, Izuku said. Grant exhaled through his nose as a stack of papers was handed to him. The contract that would put the final nail in his dream dying. Are you looking for work, Mr. Uraraka? Izuku asked. Unfortunately, Grant said. Well, I happen to need a new chief executive of Stark Construction. You have no criminal record and you kept your company alive without mass firing yet. I believe $60K a year is a good start. You're letting me keep my job? Grant asked. Well, you're gonna have to step down to a project manager while a few things are arranged, but Izuku started. Grant had fallen to his knees and his head was on the ground. Thank you. Hey, stand up, Izuku said. I don't want waterworks. Izuku held a hand out and helped him up. The smile on his new boss's face had brought one out on Grant's face. Welcome to Stark Industries, Izuku said. Thank you, Grant said. I'll send you your packet in the next few days. I actually have a project lined up. I'll call the crew, Grant said, nodding. 2 days later, Grant had opened the yellow envelope at his kitchen table. A stack of business cards, a badge and the necessary paperwork for filing his payment processing. A second envelope had the plans for the construction. Stark Industries, Uraraka Grant, Construction Chief Executive. When he opened another piece of paper, Grant broke down crying. His dream wasn't completely dead. Mr. Uraraka, this document is confirmation you possess a 10% stake in Stark Construction. You will be informed of changes in the company and your holdings' current worth. It's still Sniff, it's still mine, Grant said. We're gonna be okay, dear, his wife said, putting a hand on his shoulder. Line break. 2 months later. UA Hero Academy Medic Wing. Izuku was in the medical wing trying to figure out why All Might hadn't emerged from his cocoon. His body was much more injured than we thought. Recovery girl said, give it time, dearie. Izuku nodded and said, you want a shot of it? Extremis 2.5 is still in testing phase, but 2.0 is good to go. Shave a few years off the clock. What is Extremis 2.5? Recovery girl asked. It's a strain of Extremis that basically turns everyone sexy. Izuku explained. They won't be superhuman, but imagine a world where there'd be no blind, deaf or disabled. Where cancer doesn't exist. That's Extremis 2.5. You make that and I'd be out of a job. Recovery girl said. Hurry up with it. I gotta get to Nezu's office. Nezu's office. Ready for our rematch? Nezu asked. You're on, Izuku said, pulling up a seat. 4 months till entrance exam. After class, Katsumi grabbed him and pulled him into the girls' room. Your idea isn't doing anything. Izuku had gotten over the panic of being in the girls' room when Katsumi turned around. I've trained for months and my ass looks like Mount Ladies, but I can't even create a spark with my feet. If this was a lie just to make my ass like the hags, I'm gonna disintegrate you. Izuku had a drop of blood going down his nose. Well, if you want me to test a theory, you can meet me at my house later. Katsumi had growled. You have one chance, Deku. Izuku grabbed a paper towel and plugged his nose before crawling out the window. Izuku home. Katsumi waited out front and Izuku opened the door. About time, Katsumi said. Izuku led her in where a chair was pulled out and a pot of water on the stove. You want some tea before we start? Izuku asked. Katsumi begrudgingly accepted the cup and Izuku had her take her shoes and socks off. Lay on the couch. It'd be easier to see the muscle contractions if you're not standing. Izuku said. Katsumi did and Izuku began rubbing her leg, pinching it occasionally and seemed to be looking for something. Katsumi had actually started relaxing a bit. Angel Katsumi had snapped her shoulder to slip through the bars of her cage and yanked Devil Katsumi away from the console. Izuku pinched her butt and rubbed a spot on lower leg. Her foot sounded like a stovetop going off. Okay, I got the kinetic chain. It starts in your toes, then calf, hamstring and then your butt. If you rocket the chain the other direction, it gets a spark. Angel Katsumi slammed her fist on the console. Katsumi's butt clenched, then her hamstrings, her calves and her toes flexed, getting a spark on the underside of each foot. Thank you, Katsumi said, looking at her foot as she was testing the sparking. We need to open your pores so you can begin sweating, Izuku said, lifting her up and carrying her to the chair. The angel hit a button and Katsumi smiled. The devil was trying to get to the console. Angel Katsumi kicked her with an explosive kick. Guess we got the new quirk, bitch. Angel Katsumi screamed. Izuku set the pot on the carpet and lowered Katsumi's feet into it. Tell me if it gets uncomfortable. Katsumi told him she wanted to get out and he obliged by lifting her up. Katsumi tried another kick and an explosion sent her off the couch. Izuku had moved and caught her. Oh, he's gotten faster, Angel Katsumi said, smiling. Bitch, get away from that. The devil Katsumi was causing explosions in her hands. The angel pressed a few buttons and gave a shit-eating grin at her counterpart. Katsumi hugged Izuku and the boy went still before returning the hug. Angel Katsumi began to age, laughing like a deranged person. She was now 12 and the devil Katsumi was now desperately trying to get her away from the console. Bitch, you better not. Devil Katsumi shouted. Oh bitch, I'm gonna. Angel Katsumi said, flipping a cover off a button labeled do not push and pressed it. Katsumi purred and snuggled into Izuku. Thank you, Izuchan. Angel Katsumi had aged to 16 and cheered. The devil yanked her hair and tried pulling her to the cage. You think she could possibly use the new power without me, bitch? I'm not going back in that cage. The angel laughed as she smashed the cage to shards. Izuku had tensed up. The horned angel Izuku was desperately trying to process what the fuck just got said. God damn it, the console's frozen. Kicking it, this thing needs an upgrade. Devil Katsumi had slammed her fist on the console. You can put me down, Deku, she said, her eyes going narrow. Izuku set her down and Katsumi straightened out her clothes. I guess you were useful for something. You still won't be a hero. She grabbed her shoes and walked out. Izuku blinked. The horned angel hit a few buttons and Izuku decided to just head to the garage. 3 months till entrance exam. Midoriya had invited her out to check out his new lab. Any excuse to get away from her father was enough for her. Endeavor had been happy to get the inventor and his perfect offspring together. So after school she met up with Izuku. They took a train then a bus to a facility. Introducing the leading producer of clean nuclear energy. Izuku said thematically, Stark Industries. Shoko saw the giant machine when they entered and Izuku explained it was a larger version of the thing in his chest. It's got enough power to run a fifth of Japan. Izuku said, you're looking at the future power of the human race. And the source of the next #1 hero power. I could be #1. Shoko said, not with me and Kachan still breathing. We both evolve, Shoko. You've spent the last 4 years spinning your wheels. I just unlocked Katsumi's explosive kicks and my suit gets new upgrades all the time. Shoko was led around the mostly empty warehouse. A wall was lined with lab equipment and a clear wall was being built around it. This is the main lab. It's where most of the on-record projects will be worked on. And the off-record? Shoko asked. The less you know, Izuku said, as he grabbed an injector. Hey, over there is All Might. Where? Shoko shouted, turning and getting ambushed by Izuku jamming the injector into the left side of her face. Shoko screamed as the injected area started boiling and the external skin began peeling off. Shoko looked at a mirror on the table. Her face still had the mark, but instead of red it was bleach white. Extremis 2.4 inches, Izuku said, grinning. Won't give you superpowers, but it will handle anything skin deep. Shoko had looked at her face. Her eye wasn't completely fucked up anymore. It hurt like hell to touch. Izuku grabbed a light and a piece of scotch tape. We need to tan the new skin if you want to look normal. Normal, Shoko said, running a hand over her face. Sorry for not telling you, but I really didn't feel like asking permission. Izuku said, may I? Shoko nodded. Izuku tapped her left eye closed and began using the laser to tan her eyelids to match the face. You nervous about UA? Izuku asked. I got in on recommendations. Why would I be nervous? Getting in isn't what to be nervous about, Izuku said, holding the laser and stopping at occasional times to check consistently. School is school, Shoko said with the occasional winch at the heat. Why, are you nervous? I fought All Might to a standstill. I think I can handle an entrance exam, Izuku said. Shoko shot up, but Izuku grabbed her and held her down. Chill, girl. You fought All Might, Shoko shouted. Well, Iron Man fought him, Izuku said. I'd love to see that, Shoko said. Well, I do have it recorded, Izuku said. Shoko nearly blinded herself when her head had turned and got an eyeful of laser. You have to show me. Izuku forced her head back and said, fine if you sit still. I have to make the tan look right. Shoko was silent as she was trying to figure out how Izuku could possibly have survived a fight with All Might. Shoko was made to spar with her father and never in her life landed anything that even got to what could be called a standstill. Izuku was quirkless. Shoko wasn't as biased as her father, but even she knew what a momentous accomplishment it would be to survive a fight with All Might. And you still aren't getting in on recommendation. Wouldn't accept it if I was offered, Izuku said. I need to prove I'm more than a dick in a suit. Shoko felt the tape get removed and Izuku told her to open her eyes. What did you think? Shoko was looking at a girl before she was scared, before her mother's breakdown. The girl grew into a young woman. I'm beautiful, Shoko said. Yeah, well, here's a little doctor's tip. No rubbing, scratching or anything till I say so. We'll stop at a drugstore and get you some cream for the burning. It's gonna itch like hell and might get red again for the time, but no scratching, Izuku said. You're not a dick, Shoko said. Thank you, Izuku said. They decided to watch the fight on his laptop. Shoko had screamed around the parts May did and watched as her hero and her friend were in a fight that looked ready to kill each other. How did this happen? Shoko screamed. What could cause All Might to even agree to this? Let's just say it's something only I know the recipe to and he was in need of it, Izuku said. I wanted a full fight and I got it. Why did it cut out when you overclocked your reactor? Shoko said. I needed the power, Izuku said, lying to cover All Might's secret. When we regained consciousness, All Might woke up first and I gave him his prize. You still beat him, right? Shoko asked. I beat the hero, but I still lost to the man, Izuku said. Even when his quirk was burned out, when his body was beaten and bloody, he kept fighting. You burned out All Might's quirk, Shoko shouted. He burned out my reactor, Izuku said. I was heartless and he was quirkless. The fight devolved into two guys throwing punches till the other fell. The last thing I heard was a crunch of his jaw breaking and my skull ringing as I blacked out. May said we both fell at the same time. Shoko looked to Izuku, then the suit, then her eye. You make me feel so. Shoko didn't finish that sentence. I think that mentality is your biggest problem. A lot of people's problem. You see someone trying harder and see it as you're good enough, and instead of rising to the challenge and try harder, you decide to mope, or in some cases try to compensate by hating the one who had tried harder. Izuku said. You don't understand what my lifestyle has been like, Shoko said. Izuku listened as Shoko told him everything. Her entire childhood laid out in front of him. I think you're being selfish, Izuku said. The look on her face was priceless. Izuku would have laughed if it wasn't such a serious topic. You're smiting your mother's sacrifice by trying to hide a part of you. Shoko had started manifesting ice crystals. Endeavor is an asshole, but the one thing that man isn't is a rapist. Izuku said, your mother chose to have another kid. He wouldn't have forced her. He'd try to persuade probably, but she chose to crank out another one. She chose not to divorce him. She chose to at least finish making the perfect offspring. She cared enough to actually try again, and only after she did was when she lost her mind. You couldn't. That's. Shoko trailed off. The logic was sound, but Shoko wasn't too sure. Ask your family. You've got older siblings, they would have to have heard something. If you can, maybe ask your mother, Izuku said. The two headed out and got Shoko the cream for her face, and Izuku dropped her off. Fuyumi was cooking dinner and was just about to put it on the table when she got a look at Shoko's face and dropped the pan of dinner. Sis, Fuyumi said, rushing over. Don't touch it, it's still sore, Shoko said. Izuku was punching the beads of the Underseth into his body. Izuku tapped the arc reactor on his chest, heated and tensed the muscles they were in, and the beads unraveled and formed the platinum Underseth. His suit formed around his body and Izuku tested his movement. Jarvis, run an inventory check on the platinum storage and tell me if we have enough for another Underseth. We indeed have enough for another Mark III Underseth. Pull up the Mark II, Izuku said as the red and gold suit. A flick had the suit fragments zoomed out and Izuku moved the gold sheath out. Reconstruct the Underseth into fragments and wire in an external processing unit, Izuku said. At once, sir. The armor plates had the sheath beads integrated into them. Sir, the new design would have no tactical advantages to the current design. It's not for. Jarvis interrupted him by flashing a news warning. A plane had been hijacked. Save the project, Izuku said. Jarvis, how's the parts? Still not complete, sir. How's Iron Liberty? Stars and Stripes are capable of flight. However, the weapon systems are. He headed to the outer plates and attached them as fast as he could. I need a quicker way to suit up, Izuku thought as he got suited up. Line break. A streak of blue had flew above the ocean headed towards the plane. Jarvis, contact ground control and patch me into that plane. Your lives, sir. Attention, this is Iron Liberty. What is the situation on board? Mayday, mayday, this is co-pilot Matthew Briggs of Flight 77 to Japan. The pilot has been shot. I've locked the cockpit and 3 passengers have been killed. Briggs, listen closely. I need to keep that door shut, buckle your seat belt and keep this thing at cruising altitude. I'm here to help, Izuku said. Okay. Shit, they don't prepare you enough for this shit. Glenn was a Navy pilot, for fuck's sake, Briggs said. Just breath, man, we're gonna get through this, Izuku said. Get the passengers buckled in. We're gonna get through this. Inside plane. Attention passengers, I know the current hijacking is in progress, but I would recommend buckling your seat belt, putting your tray tables up and your seats in the full upright position. Thank you for your cooperation in this unforeseen event and thank you for flying with us. The passengers still die, the one who killed the pilot said, aiming for another passenger. Hey